Alrighty, link to the pattern is in the description box below. The first thing you're going to do is put your pattern together and cut the pieces out, and you're going to cut these all on the fold. That means you're going to lay that pattern piece on the edge of the folded fabric, and you're going to cut 2 of the sleeves and 2 of the dress body. You're also going to need some elastic. I'm using 1/4 inch elastic here, and I made a vinyl decal of a pumpkin face because I thought that would be really cute since this is a project for Halloween. So I'm just cleaning the area, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on there because I have a fold line that I can see, and it'll just, to me, it'll be easier to line it up before I construct the dress than after. And I just found these pumpkin faces that I used on this dress by doing a Google search of pumpkin face SVG. That way it's a good clean file, and you can cut it out directly with your Cricut. You don't have to worry about converting it or anything. So there you go. I'm just going to iron that on really well, and then we're going to start constructing the dress. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do to start constructing the dress is I'm going to take one of those sleeves, and I'm going to line that curved edge up, and I'm going to pin it to it, and make sure you have right sides facing together. And I'm going to pin that, and then I'm going to go to my machine and sew around that, and I'm going to do that with both sides. Now I decided for this video that since I do want it to be aimed at beginners for the most part, that I slowed down some of the steps here so that they would be easier to comprehend and easier to follow. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section below, and I'll do the best I can to help y'all out. I upload new sewing or crafting tutorials weekly. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell so that you get notified when I upload a new video. So there you have it. You can see that's the first side. Now we're just going to lay that back side of the dress body out, and we're going to do the same thing we did on the first side. Nothing complicated, just going to do the exact same thing, making sure right sides are facing together. It is worth noting that the pattern that I'm using is not my pattern. It is only in one size. I cannot upsize it for you. I cannot give you measurements for a child that I do not know, and I cannot have physically in front of me to measure. That would be up to you to do a search and find a similar pattern that you can use and follow along with this tutorial. This is for a 0 to 3 months, and that is the only size that she has available in this pattern. It is free. Alright, so this is what it's going to look like when you have those sleeves together and the entire body is attached. Now what we're going to do is make casings for the armholes, and the first thing I'm going to do is fold over about 1/4 inch, and I'm going to press that, and then I'm going to fold over about 1/2 inch, and that just keeps the raw edges from showing. If you have a serger, you can just serge this. If you have a machine that does zigzag stitch, you can tighten that zigzag stitch and just run that right along the edge of that, and you don't have to do that first fold. but I don't have that, so I am doing it this way. Plus I like it this way. It looks a lot neater and it's a lot softer on baby skin, so I would recommend doing it the way I'm doing it here. So I'm going to fold both of these sleeves over like this, and then I'm going to sew along the inner edge of the fold so that I can run the elastic through it. I encourage you to check out my links in the description box below. Follow me on Facebook, where you'll get exclusive content that goes along with some of my weekly projects. And sometimes it's just random stuff. But anyway, yeah, come on and let's be friends. Alright, so the next thing is going to be the neckline, and it's basically going to be the same concept with the armholes. So I'm going to do like a 1/4 inch all the way around, and for me pressing this just would not work. It's at an odd angle, so I just freehand it, and we're going to remove that free arm so that we have the ability to do that rounded sewing. If you can't remove your free arm, I feel really bad for you if you don't have a machine that has a free arm. It makes it a lot easier to do things like this. And I am opening up those seams you'll see there, and that just cuts down on the bulk because this is clothing for a child, so we want to make sure it's as comfortable as possible. So I'm going to go all the way around with that 1/4 inch fold over, and then I'm going to fold over a 1/2 inch and do the same thing. When you have to do casing or sewing in the round like this, or even hems, this is where it's really important to try to make your cuts as neat and as precise as possible. If it's off by even a 1/2 inch, you know, in some areas, or it's jagged and the fabric's not straight, it's going to make it really hard to get these lined up right. And if you see when I'm turning here, when everything falls into place, those seams match up. Sometimes they don't match perfect, but they match as close as you can get them. And when you pull it, you'll notice that it almost folds over itself, and you don't have any trouble getting it neat, getting it lined up. That means you've cut everything right and you're good to go with this. It's a learning process, but you know, mistakes are just lessons. So remember, you know, don't give up the first time if things don't go smooth. I used to make a hot mess out of things like this, and now it's just sometimes it comes natural most of the time. So don't be shy. And I did put a pin in that to mark, and I left about an inch opening so that I could feed that elastic through. So there we have it. I've pressed it, and now I am going to put the elastic in the casing, and you'll see me measure here, and I measured at 7.5 inches, but I felt like that was too long once I got to doing the process, so I cut it down to 6.5. You see me do that with the first sleeve. The second sleeve I cut it down before I got it inside the casing, so that's why you don't see me doing that twice. So I use a safety pin, and I pin the elastic. I don't think you could see that part, but I run it through and I stop it just at the edge, and when I get it to my machine, I sew the one side and then I hold the other side. Well, you saw me do it. It's kind of tricky. You'll see in the second sleeve I actually will pin the elastic on the tail end there so it doesn't go through, because I almost lost it putting it through the first one, and that would have been a big hot mess to try and pull it out. But anyway, that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to pin that tail in so it doesn't slide through there and get lost in the casing while I'm sewing the first side on. Alright, so now for the fun part, we're going to put the dress together. So what I'm going to do is line up those bottom of the sleeve, the underarm part, and it kind of goes at a little angle, so you do have to be very careful and line everything up really well. I'm going to pin it just for the sake of getting it lined up, and then you'll see when I go to the machine I actually change the pin around. That's just, I don't know, that's just what I did. Okay, so once I got that, I'm going to sew that, and I'm going to sew all the way down the dress, and I'm doing about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We just want a good thick seam allowance because I'm going to cut it with my pinking shears whenever I get everything together. My mama taught me that pinking shears were used to keep the fabric from fraying as bad, and from, you know, when you didn't have a serger or a zigzag stitch. So that's why you'll see me do that once I get these sides together. Alright, so this is the fun part. I have the elastic for the neckline. I cut about 18 inches. In hindsight, I think you could cut it slightly smaller. I'd go with about 14 to 16 inches for this size. But I'm going to pin that elastic to the safety pin, and I'm going to feed it through. Now this part is really tricky and actually took quite a bit of time for me to complete, because you've got those seam lines there and your pin will kind of get caught. Just take your time. I have had safety pins open up when I'm doing this process, and it is a mess to try and get it out. So just be really careful. If you have a better way of doing this, feel free to comment in the comments below, and next time I do a project like this, I'll try your way. I just don't. I had bought a tool that was supposed to do stuff like this, and I found it to be really freaking annoying. So I use a safety pin, and I just take my time. It's a little extra work, but it's not as aggravating as the little tool I bought that kept getting stuck in there. So there you go. And once I've got that fit all the way through, I just pin the elastic pieces, and what I'm doing is making sure that that elastic is not twisted up in there. With it being that small and that hard to feed through that casing is really tight, it can get twisted up and be a mess. So, you know, you don't want that to happen, so you really need to don't skip that step. So now I'm going to get it ready, and this is a process that I've just have so much trouble with. I'm never sure how to do this, and you'll see in the video here that I'm going to do this two ways. I'm going to do a straight stitch going the opposite way on this elastic that I've put one piece on top of the other, and then I'm gonna turn it around and do a zigzag stitch. Again, if you have a better way of doing this, let me know how you do it. I have in the past hand stitched the elastic together, and I actually kind of like that method better because it feels more secure. But for the sake of this video, I just didn't do it. And do not forget to close that opening where you fed that casing through the neckline. I almost forgot, this is actually the last step that I did. Alrighty, now I'm going to get my big old honking pinking shears out, and I'm going to cut that line all the way around where I just seamed the sides. Just be really careful, don't cut through your seam line, and take your time. Pinking shears can be a little frustrating to use, but it's worth the extra step to make it look pretty. Alrighty, so now we're going to create a hemline, and it's going to be kind of like we did with the armholes and the neckline. I'm going to fold over about 1/4 inch, and I'm going to sew all the way around. I'm not going to press it. I don't like to do that. It always throws me off. It's better for me to do it this way. I'm going to do that 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to fold over about 1/2 inch, and I'm going to sew that. and then the dress will be complete. This would be super adorable with a little green long sleeve turtleneck and some green stockings. I can just picture it. Wish I had a little baby around that I could dress up all the time. But if you are interested in this particular dress, at the time that this video is posted, it will be available in my Etsy shop for a very reasonable price. I just don't have anything better to do with some of the things that I create. So I will just sell them off to you gals and guys. And again, this is for a 0 to 3 months, and the measurements and all that will be in the description box below, and it will also be in the description in the Etsy listing. Alright, so the actual last step is to just press that hemline that you just did, and you just want to get everything all neat and pretty and ready for baby. So that is it. I hope y'all enjoyed this little tutorial. If you did, again, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And when you subscribe, hit that bell next to the subscribe button, and you'll get notified whenever I upload new videos. Peace, y'all. Bye-bye.